What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded. To be honest, I've been mainly focusing on building up my business, building up systems, figuring out where exactly I wanted to take it, and that leads right into the video I kind of wanted to make. I wanted to jump on here and kind of just go over 5 things that I've learned since starting my business. I've been running my business for a few years now, and there's a few things that I've learned through trial and error that I kind of wanted to go over for anyone that's watching this that may be thinking of either starting their business or currently is in the process of starting their business, maybe in their first year or their first couple months. For those of you that don't know, I run a marketing and sales agency where we do both advertising for companies and we take sales calls for them. And jumping right into it, the first thing I wanted to talk about was self-help. I've seen a lot of people in the entrepreneurial space talking about all of these self-help tactics from these books, these tips and tricks, these organizers, these morning routines, these, using aura rings, sleep calculation, making sure that, you have to be up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. if you want to make it. And from my personal experience in growing my business and trying to do a lot of those things, it's not the end all be all is what I'll say. I'm not going to say none of it works, and I'm not going to say all of it is guaranteed to work. It's more about you. It's more about you, your anatomy, what you actually enjoy, and what you can maintain. That's the most important part, actually, is the maintenance of whatever you do. If you're going to have a routine, make it a routine you can maintain. If you're going to use aura rings and organizers, make sure you can maintain the use of those aura rings and organizers. If you're going to use sleep schedules, make sure you can maintain that sleep schedule. At the end of the day, there's no magic time when you should wake up. There's no magic thing that every entrepreneur should use that's going to, 10x their business. It's whatever you can maintain and whatever is working the best for you that gets the most productivity out of you. I personally don't use any of those things. I'm more of a late guy. What I found with myself is I get the best and most work done after 8 p.m. So I'm working usually from 8 p.m. till 2 in the morning, and then I'm doing a lot of lighter stuff and other things in the morning time, but the bulk of my work is the evening. And that's just me. That's what I found works the best for me. And you can see what works the best for you, not just follow what every self-help book says and, always wake up at a certain time that they tell you and always do things at the time that they tell you. I actually took some kind of sleep cycle test, which I guess it just asked me a bunch of questions about me, my personality, and it actually told me for my specific body type, for the type of personality I have, what was the best time for me to go to sleep and wake up. And I found that actually really helped. And I liked it because it was something that was for me and not just everyone should do this kind of thing. So if you guys are looking to optimize what you do in the day, look at the when rather than the what. If you're finding yourself demotivated to do things, look at when you're trying to do things and try to, optimize your day around when it works the best for you. And that brings me on to point number 2. The best thing you could do for yourself is not do too much. You want to pick one thing that moves the needle forward and do that thing consistently every single day. When I first started out, I had a really shiny new syndrome or whatever it's called, right? Shiny object syndrome. I would always see these new strategies, these new things, and try to jump on them without ever going too deep into that one thing. And that's what leads you to just take way too long to ever master that thing and way too long to actually yield results out of it. I learned that almost every single strategy of growing my business was working as long as I did it long enough, right? If you're doing something and you're able to get one customer doing it, don't get the shiny object syndrome and just start doing 3 or 4 other things to, supplement it. Stick to that one thing until you master it and just work on massively increasing the volume. If you can just get really good at that one way to bring in new business and just max out the volume, you'll see much better results than doing 3 or 4. And then when you can completely automate it, and I mean completely to the point where you can take yourself out of the process so that it's still consistently and profitably bringing in new business, then I would say create another stream. That's when you would jump onto thing number 2. And I have made that mistake a few times where, you'd see people or see someone talking to you or trying to give you advice saying how great this one strategy is and how it's so awesome to, get new customers and it's so easy, to the point where I would stop doing what I was doing that was already working for me just to run off and do that other thing. Or I would try to do it simultaneously, leaving less time for each thing, jumping into it, assuming I would get better results right off the bat, and stupidly assuming that there wouldn't be a whole nother build up period to get that new thing working, when I could have just been improving the thing that I already have going and mastering that thing. And when you do this once, you do this twice, you do this 3 times, you just end up digging 3 to 5 shallow holes in a bunch of different avenues without ever digging deep enough to really hit gold in any of them. And that brings me to number 3. Get really, really good at sales and leadership. Being really good at sales and being really good at managing people and managing emotions is way more important than constantly acquiring new skills in different areas. When it comes to your offer, when it comes to your product or service, yes, you want to be really, really good and really skillful at delivering that. But aside from that, you want to also master sales in managing people and leading people. Everything else you kind of only want to know a little bit about, because you can only master so many things in a lifetime, right? So if you're running a business and you have a mastery of sales and leadership, you can manage and inspire more people to have a mastery in everything else. You can hire an accountant with 25 years experience. You can hire a lawyer that knows everything about legal structure. You can hire a branding team or a really good brand strategist to make everything look pretty. You don't really need to be an expert in all areas yourself. You just need to know enough so that you can make the right hiring decisions, and you just know enough so that the people that you do hire can't take advantage of you. Point is, with great leadership and management skills, you can build and run a successful business full of, very talented experts much easier than if you were to just have those skills and not have any leadership ability. A lawyer or a doctor, very, very good at what they do, will not be able to build a proper firm or build their practice without the ability to lead or sell. And simply just having really good sales ability will put you miles above the competition when you're first starting out, because you'll just be able to bring in more revenue, especially when you're competing against everyone else on the ground level. For example, when I first started my business years ago, my very first month I was able to bring in $4,000, not because I had a crazy new service or product or very crazy unique offer, but what I did have was the ability to talk to people, the ability to close deals and convey value without having a huge track record or portfolio. And that brings me to a lesson I learned shortly after, was lowering cost can be way more effective than increasing revenue. When I got my first clients, I instantly went to build a team and delegate. And looking back, I probably should have spent a little bit more time doing it alone, but at the same time, I was able to grow at a rapid pace because I was able to scale with the team helping me out with the workload. So I was able to scale pretty fast. I did have a lot of help, so I'm not really saying that was a bad thing. But where I did go wrong was consistently trying to improve my service and make more money by adding more to its width instead of its depth. Essentially, I was trying to just solve more problems for the client without first perfecting the one main problem that we set out to perfect and we set out to actually solve. And I wasn't focusing everything on solving it better than everyone else. I was too focused on adding services so that I could charge more and get more clients. I really thought that by solving more problems, even though there were sub problems that were kind of related to the main one, I thought that I'd be able to grow faster and make more, but it really just ended up hindering my growth. For example, when we first started the marketing agency, first we were doing social media management. Then I realized there was more money in actually doing advertising. So instead of, slowly getting rid of social media management, I decided to do management and advertising at the same time, which is probably fine for a big agency with a lot of staff, but for a small agency with a few guys, and when you're just starting out, it's not what you want to do. So in doing that, with adding more things came more complication. With more complication came more time to manage it. With more time to manage it came me needing to want to recoup that time, and with wanting to recapture that time, just led to me either having to hire more people or put in more automation, which both cost more money at the end of the day. There was a point I remember I had like 7 different employees and I was spending about $1,500 a month on different softwares to do all this crazy automated stuff. This all just ended up killing margins. And at the time, I didn't really realize how important margins were, because I just figured, yeah, margins were a little bit smaller, but I could, go out and get more clients and just stack a ton of clients on there to make that money back by, having a lot more clients. And in theory, yes, it should work that way. It should have worked fine. If you have a lot of people, you should be able to manage a lot of work. But that's assuming that every single person you hire is just going to do a perfect job, which is so far from the truth. And that's when I just really remembered from years of being a sales trainer and training 2 to 3 sales reps every single week was, you have to be good at hiring, but you also have to be good at firing really, really fast. Hire and train fast, but fire even faster. And trust me, that's way easier to do when you're doing it for another company. When I was working as a sales trainer for another company versus when it's your company. You will hire a ton of people, no matter how good your interview process is. You will end up hiring a ton of people that just don't work out, and keeping them around will bring a whole new level of just frustration. It can bring the whole company down. And on top of that, you're paying them to do a bad or mediocre job. And this is where we get to the last point, just not charging what your service is actually worth. Again, it's all about margins, and depending on what you're selling, it can be really, really hard to improve or expand your product, expand your reach, if you just don't have the space for it and the revenue to facilitate that growth. For example, if you really need to add another position to cover the workload, or you need to add something that would really, really just benefit your prospects, your clients, but you're charging so low that it will bring your profitability from like a 70% to a 50%, it's just not going to work out that well. Not to say that anything's wrong with either of those margins. Those are still good margins for a business. But at the end of the day, you have to charge what you're worth in order to actually make sure you're keeping the margins you want. Because as a business owner, you want to have the best margins possible. You want something you can, buy for $1 and sell for 100, right? You want the best margins possible. So if you want to keep your margins, you have to be able to charge more when you're doing more. And one thing I learned the hard way was charge more even if you can find really cheap help. Even if you can buy it for $1, that doesn't mean sell it for 5 instead of 10. That doesn't mean sell it for 2 instead of 100. Sell it for what the market values it as, regardless of how cheap you can get the labor. Especially if you have a recurring revenue business model, charging way too low will really mess you up, because if you have employees that are willing to help for a lower amount, it will not benefit you in the long run if you're trying to grow that, or if you run into a snag, because again, you're most likely going to have to get rid of those people at some point. You're most likely going to have to swap them out, even if they're not doing a terrible job. If you just want to swap them out for someone that's better, someone that's more leveled up, it's going to be really, really hard to replace them if you have a ton of clients that aren't willing to just pay more, or if you just don't want to charge your clients more. If you're not willing to charge your clients more, you're going to run into a snag where you're stuck with that person because you can't find anyone else that's going to take on the work for that same revenue, for that same amount. Especially if you're looking for someone better than them, you're going to have to pay them more because they're better at the end of the day. They're better at what they do. They get more done in less time. You're going to have to pay them more because they're worth more. So if you can't afford to pay them more because you're not charging enough, or you just don't want to have to raise the prices on your existing client base, then you're in a really tight spot and you don't want to be stuck and dependent on an employee. Not to say that you're doomed anyways, even if you're going to double the price, because if you double the price and you lose, let's say, half your clientele, you're still in a pretty good spot because you're making the same revenue with half the work. But you always want to charge enough and leave yourself room for growth. Just because, you can charge lower because you have a team that's willing to do it for less, you're in that business to grow it. You're in that business to invest. You're in that business to have it be able to provide for you and provide for others. So charge enough so they can do that. And a lot of people just assume that people like cheap stuff and that's why they charge low. But I'll tell you one thing, my highest paying clients were my best clients. They were always have been my best clients. My worst clients have always been the ones that have paid the least amount. And you're not doing anybody favors by charging a low amount, as long as you have a good service, right? With my highest paying clients, there was just a much bigger investment on their end, which led to them really wanting to get results. So it led to them being way more proactive and working way more with the team. Now, there are a ton more things that I've learned since starting my business a few years ago, but for time's sake, for this video not being hours long, I'm just gonna leave it at those 5. And if you're thinking of starting your own business, or you've already started, you're a few months to a year into it, these are some things that you're gonna probably want to think about if you're looking at growing and expanding. It's really, really good to hear these kind of things and avoid these mistakes. Yes, I've made a ton of mistakes since starting my business, but I'll tell you one thing, hearing people talk about failures, hearing people talk about where they went wrong and how they could have done better has led me to avoid 10 times more mistakes than I've ever made. A lot of people like talking about their wins. A lot of people like talking about things that go right because it's flashy. But what I found for me personally, I don't know about everybody else, but for me personally, I've always gotten the most growth from seeing people's failures and how to avoid them for myself. So if you're watching this, I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you learned something. If you did, if you enjoyed, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.